And Emily, thanks. This meeting is being recorded. There we go. Let me see. Let me make sure got everything working. So Emily, can you see the screen?
I can see the screen, Des Moines. It's so good to see you too.
All right, all right. Well, looks like we got a handful of students. Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with me tonight. My name is Des Moines Adams, and I'm gonna spend a little bit of time exercising your leadership. I know October, just based on the website, it's a great opportunity for you all to get back and make a difference. And this is what this fraternity is all about. And with that, a little bit about me. Originally from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, born and raised, attended the University of Nebraska Lincoln for college, first generation student. And so just being able to make that leap really took a lot. It was quite the transition, I would say, but with the help of others, as they say, leaders don't create followers, leaders create leaders. So I'm very grateful for the leaders in my life. I must say that I guess, really applaud the mentors that are out there. And so if, for those of you that are on the call, I want you to think about, as we're going through this presentation, which won't be very long, who are some of those mentors, role models in your life, leaders that you see yourself looking up to, because we model what we follow. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've made a shift in society and what we need to do to get back to being a Delta Sig. So with that, I always like to start with a quote. And the quote today is, "The future belongs to those who prepare for it." And the reason I want to share this is because right now we are always providing you resources to shape you for your future. Every year I'm very fortunate that I get invited to a conference for Delta Sig, whether it's regional. This year I'll be in Kansas City. It's always a great time just to prepare students to be the next future generation of leaders. But it's a transition, similar to one of my favorite movies, Happy Gilmore. Maybe some of you all have seen this, maybe some of you have not, but it's about a former hockey player who decides now he wants to play golf. So he figured just because he was an athlete, he can just make that transition and just go out into the golf course and boom, he's successful. But he realizes that it wasn't that easy. Prime example, I'm one of them. Being a former football player playing in Nebraska, but also a little bit of football in the NFL with the Packers, Titans, and 49ers. I thought playing golf would be an easy transition, just like hitting a baseball, but it was not easy because I had to learn that I had to train and recondition the way that I use my muscles because it was a different game. And so it was a little bit of a learning curve to where what I thought would help me in the game of golf, which helped me in football, it wasn't that simple. So for me to play golf, as I mentioned, I had to retrain and recondition the way that I was using my muscles. Leadership is going to be the same way when it comes to what that looks like for you as students. The way that we were brought up, learning about leadership, what I knew about leadership growing up as a kid is completely different today. But even in 2022, what we have learned about leadership, because for a lot of us, leadership has somewhat, I guess, been a little bit misperceived. Now, when you look at these 5 things, because what we're trying to do is get you ready and set for your future. We're trying to get you career ready. And these are the top 5 characteristics that jobs, careers are looking for. But the number one thing that employers, companies are looking for is leadership. And that's why we want to spend some time exercising your leadership tonight so that you can get into leadership, understanding why this is important to put on your resume, understanding why it's important to get involved and do some things that you may not have, I guess, done by putting yourself out there. Because leadership, as I mentioned, there has been a shift. What we thought leadership was, let me retrain and recondition you to think about leadership a little different, not based on these things that you see on the screen. For so long, for me as a kid, I thought leadership, was 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, a lot of these items on the screen. Maybe for some of you, maybe you have grown up thinking, or you have been conditioned to think that leadership is all about demonstrating one of these things, or it's about receiving one of these things, or you have to possess 1, 2, or 3 of these items on the screen. But actually, you don't have to possess any of these items. It's not about your height, not about your weight, it's not about your background. It's not about having this sense of power. Leadership is about making a difference. And so for those of you that maybe you were like me, growing up, I didn't think that I would ever be a leader because I wasn't outgoing. I'm an introvert by nature. And some of these other things on the screen. But the game has changed. The game of life, what we live in, is not about these things right here. It's really about 3 things. The first thing is understand everyone has it, but the difference is how you use it. Leadership is just like a muscle, to where when I say we need to exercise our leadership, which I'm going to give you 2 things tonight on how you can exercise your leadership. The more you use your leadership, the more you practice it, the bigger, the better, the stronger it gets, just like a muscle. So regardless of your background, regardless of your personality, regardless of your height, your weight, the color of your skin, where you come from, it doesn't matter. You all have it, but the difference is how you use it. But in second, it's about one thing. It's about the influence that you're making on others. Think of your TikTok, your Instagram, your Snapchat. Think of the kind of influence that you are making. Is it a positive one? Is it negative? Think about your following base. We all have followers that are watching us. We are an influence, whether we like it or not. And leadership is about one thing, influence. So you got to ask yourself, what kind of influence are you having right now on your social media? What kind of influence do you have when you walk on campus, when you're around and interacting with others? That influence determines your leadership. But then also, leadership is not a title, it's a role and it's a responsibility. And so, just like in any organization, right now, maybe some of you are an officer at your chapter. Maybe some of you are not. And maybe because you're not an officer right now, maybe you don't think that you are demonstrating leadership. But just because you're not an officer doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have what it takes for leadership. But let me reverse it. Just because you are an officer does not mean that you have what it takes for leadership. It's about what you do. It's the action. It's not a noun, it's a verb. It's about what you do with that leadership muscle that determines your leadership. So these are just 3 basic things as I retrain and recondition the way that maybe you thought about leadership. Really, the one thing that I want to make sure that I leave you thinking about is this number 2. Leadership is about one thing, your influence. Now, what kind of influence can we have, especially when leadership is really that muscle? The more you use it, the bigger your impact gets. How can you make a difference, not just this month, but every day, every month, as a Delta Sig future leader? So these are just questions that I want you to think about. But something has happened over the last 2 years that, I just want to make sure that I just put out there. We've been hit with a lot of bad news, things that have challenged us, adversity. There have been some positive things, with TikTok and Netflix and HBO Max, things that have somewhat kept us connected, so to speak. The music has changed. We've been able to stay connected just like what we're doing tonight. These last couple of years, there have been no conferences. Last year, I would say for the first time, Delta Sig brought back conferences. So there have been some good things that have come over these last 2 years, but also something else that has happened. We have become followers. We have been so connected to our social media, to our phone, to our laptops, to where we've become disconnected from people. Our anxiety, our levels of depression have increased while our levels of emotional intelligence have decreased. What is emotional intelligence? Our ability to be problem solvers, critical thinkers, managing our emotions. We are not doing a great job demonstrating our emotional intelligence because of what has happened over these last 2 years. And as I mentioned, we have become a society that has been divided. Of course, COVID-19 is a real thing, but also from social and racial injustice, political division, is either you're this way or you're this way. So our society has become divided, separated. Now, how do we manage that? How do we make that pivot? Well, one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to leadership is positivity. I believe that our attitude is our choice. And I think there are a lot of people that are out there making excuses as to why they have a right to be negative, why they have a right to be rude. But I believe that positivity is not something that we try to be. It's something that we must choose to be. But just like that muscle, we got to exercise it. So the practice of being or tendency to be positive or optimistic in attitude. So just think, when we were going through the pandemic, which, for some places, maybe we still are, but do you realize that we will always see a sign that would say, practice 6 feet, practice social distancing, 6 feet. Think about why they told us to practice social distancing. Because it was something that we weren't used to. It was something that did not come natural. So therefore, we were encouraged to practice something that did not come natural to us so that eventually it will be something that will become the norm. Same thing with positivity. We have to practice being positive. And the more we practice it, just like that muscle, the stronger it gets, the better it gets. Leadership is about being positive, especially when we're living in a time to where we get out what we put in. And so whether it's the information that we receive on the news, the music that we listen to, the things that we read and follow on social media, we have to be careful because we get out what we put in. So what does that mean? Well, as I mentioned, we have been so connected to our phones for communication purposes, for entertainment, to look at pictures. For some of us who couldn't go home over the last 2 years. And, maybe a lot of this is past tense, and maybe some of you all are thinking, well, why am I bringing this up? Well, because I don't think we have truly realized the impact over these last 2 years that it has left us. Because some of this stuff may seem like it's not a big deal. But when I look at the other side of how we've been impacted, the negativity, when I scroll through certain things on Instagram, the rude comments, people thinking that it's okay, that it's normal to be inappropriate, to be able to share your opinions. And if someone thinks or believes different than you, it's okay for you not to like them or you unfriend them or all of the excuses that are out there. Leadership, I believe, is something that is missing, but it's an opportunity for us to embrace. Because I believe when it comes to winning this battle of being positive, for example, it starts with us putting our I in win. If we want to win this battle, we must put our I in win. Every single day, we must make that choice of choosing to give our best effort, not our best excuse. And I think when we exercise our leadership with that effort of not waiting around, not trying to be positive, but choosing to be positive, that is going to be the difference maker. That's what's going to separate this fraternity and what we do and what we stand for versus the norm. This allows us to set and create a new norm. And that norm is really getting back to being leaders, because leaders don't create followers. Leaders create leaders. So my question to you is, what kind of influence are you having on your social media, in your conversations, from the things that you post? Is it positive or is it negative? Are you leaving people feeling better about themselves? Or are you leaving them feeling down and angry and depressed? That's why we have to be very careful, because we get out what we put in and we model what we follow. It's a good reminder to reflect back on what this fraternity stands for. What does it mean to be a Delta Sig? Not an American, but a Delta Sig. Because I truly believe that either we're being role models or we're being role followers. As a reminder, we are being trained to be role models. Leadership is the number one characteristic that careers, employers, jobs are looking for. And we must get back to not only the roots of what we stand for, but most importantly, we need to set the tone for what this new norm that we need to create. Because just because something is normal doesn't mean that it's right. That's why getting back to what we believe is true, what we believe is right, what we know we stand for will help us. You know, one of the things that, I always like to reflect back on is last summer when my family and I got a chance to finally take a trip because we couldn't travel. So this picture right here, it was when we were in Florida. Now at the time, this day turned out to be a nice day, blue skies, sunny, but the weather forecast actually said that it was a 25% chance of rain. So when we left our house, as we were driving, it did not look like this. My wife didn't think it was a good idea to go to the beach, but I thought it was a good idea. It was just a 25% chance. And she said, well, if you look at the phone, I mean, there is no sun. Look at the sky. There is no sun. But the mistake that she made is she didn't realize the 75% chance of sunshine. And because I stay focused on that 75%, this is a man right here that just won an argument. I had my wife to take this picture because it's rare that I win an argument, but we all make that mistake, right? When we look at the forecast, if it says it's a 25% chance of rain or snow, we prepare for that rain, we prepare for that snow, but we fail to think about the 75%. Well, I think in life, when it comes to not exercising our leadership and we become role followers, it's easy for us to get caught up in the 25%, the negatives, our own weaknesses, our inabilities, what's going wrong in life, what's going wrong in our own life, what we can't control, the fears and the doubts. If we are not careful, we too can make that mistake, focusing on the 25% of our reality. Because for a lot of you, we all have weaknesses. We all have things that are wrong with us. There are things that are out of our control. Now, that is a part of reality, but there's also a bigger reality. It's 75%. In addition to our weaknesses, let's not forget about our strengths. In addition to the things that are wrong with us, let's not forget about the things that are right about us, things that we can do, the things that we have control of, the confidence and the courage, knowing that those things don't just happen overnight. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes practice. Everything in life takes practice. If you want to be good at something, it all starts with what you see. What you see is what you get. And I feel like right now, our society is easy to focus on the 25%. It's easy to focus on all of the things that are going wrong based on what we see, read, and hear. But we have to be better at our emotional intelligence, being better managers of our time, being better managers of what goes in our head, what we see, what we hear, knowing that we get out what we put in. What's the goal tonight? It's for you to get out the fact that the reality is that you get to choose your leadership. Because in this game called life, you win or lose by how you choose. You can either choose to give your best effort or you can choose to give your best excuse. You can choose to focus on your strengths or you can choose to focus on your weaknesses. You can choose to focus on what's going right or you can choose to focus on what's going wrong. But at the end of the day, it's your eye that you must put in winning this battle of not only being positive, that's one way that you can exercise your leadership, but also having this sense of hope. If we truly want to make a difference when it comes to leadership, when it comes to providing that influence to other people, that hope, making sure that as role models, we are modeling an expectation for others, this level of positivity that something is good is going to come, that things are going to get better. And so with that, what does hope really look like? You know, the one thing that I cannot, I guess, ignore is the fact that Disney Plus, $9.99 when I first got signed up, now I'm stuck with it. But the one thing that I love about Disney Plus, I get to watch every single Marvel movie. And one of my favorite Marvel movies are the Avengers. Now, if you think about these superheroes, what makes them super, number one, is that regardless of the fact that Spider-Man is a kid, or the fact that Hulk is green and his pants don't fit him, they choose to focus on their strengths, not their weaknesses. That's the one thing that makes them super. But the other thing that makes them super is that when they come together, they make a bigger impact. They make a bigger difference. That's why I believe that the Avengers, when it comes to some of their movies, what makes them super is that they focus on their strengths, not their weaknesses. I want to give somebody out there a little hope in knowing that you get out what you put in. And what you focus on the most is simply how you're going to live, because our actions follow our beliefs. When you believe that you have what it takes, when you are a part of something special, Delta said, we are training you, we are conditioning you to be leaders, but we also have to retrain and recondition you the way that society is trying to program you. Not around your weaknesses, but around your strengths. So what makes the Avengers super strong? What helps them to exercise their leadership? Well, it starts with their leader. And what makes them strong instead of what makes them weak, this is their attitude. Your attitude is always your choice. When you focus on what can go right instead of what can go wrong, when they can focus on what brings them together instead of what makes them divided. These are all things that makes them unified, that makes them a force. They cannot be defeated. And we all know what heroes represent. Hope. What will you represent as a leader? What kind of influence, what kind of impact do you truly want to make in the communities that you're in? Right now, this month is a great opportunity for you to exercise your leadership with two things tonight. Starting with your positivity, your attitude. It's not something that we try to be, it's something that we choose to be, but also providing people with this expectation that something good is going to happen. Two ways that we can exercise our leadership beginning this month. For us to represent something bigger, something more, to live and stand for something that can help others to have a better attitude. What will you represent? Will you continue to be a role follower and be a part of society's norm? Or will you, at your chapter, be a part of the solution, make a difference, and stand for something more, be something more, live out something more? What will you do on your social media? Will you stop following what everyone else is following? Or will you choose to separate yourself, not be different, but to be unique? These are all of the things that are going to help us to make that difference in the future. So as I get ready to wrap this thing up, because I'm already over time, as I pointed out earlier, leaders don't create followers. Leaders create leaders. You are a part of an organization where there are a lot of leaders that want to be your resources. You have many opportunities to surround yourself around mentors, role models. What you see is what you get. My hope is that you take full advantage of these opportunities that we are providing you to exercise your leadership, knowing that it does not come natural. It's what you do with your leadership that will allow you to make that difference. So I want to thank you all tonight for allowing me to just share with you just something brief, something fun, something that's really simple for you to train and retrain your leadership around two things: being positive and providing hope. If you can focus on those two actions, that will allow you to begin making a difference, not just this month, but every month, so that your leadership can be impactful. And it's not just a characteristic that you're possessing, but it becomes a lifestyle. So with that, that is my time. And I know it is past 8 o'clock. If you're on Eastern Standard Time, it's probably 9 o'clock. I know some of y'all have to get to your homework. Does anyone have any questions? And this PowerPoint will be available on the website, and this is being recorded as well. I see we have Alex and I see we have James. Do either of you have any questions or thoughts or comments? And if you're too shy, you can always put something in the comments section as well. Well, as we get ready to wrap up, and as I mentioned, this PowerPoint will be available on the website. I'm just curious, Alex, where is your fraternity? Where are you located at?